12 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few wide receivers I would drop this week. The first guy, McCoy Hardman of the Kansas City Chiefs. I thought Hardman was going to have a good ball game versus the Dallas Cowboys as a sleeper option in Week 11, but that obviously didn't happen. So right here, Hardman's only got one double-digit fantasy game since Week 6 here for fantasy owners, and right now he's still owned in 50% of fantasy leagues, but the production isn't there. Patrick Mahomes really isn't looking his way, and the last few games he hasn't done much, and also has the bye coming up in Week 12. Week 9 versus Green Bay, 3 catches, 20 yards. Week 10 at the Vegas Raiders, 2 catches, 27 yards. And Week 11 versus the Cowboys, only 2 catches, 25 yards. So I thought Hardman this season was going to be more in the game plan here for this Kansas City Chief team, but that hasn't been the case. They're not looking deep his way, and right now he's not being productive. I know he could catch a deep ball any given Sunday here, but right now there's no need to hold on to him on your fantasy team. He's just not getting the job done, and he's an easy drop this week. The next wide receiver is Robbie Anderson of the Carolina Panthers. So Robbie Anderson, he's owned in 49% of fantasy leagues. I know he had a good ball game in Week 10 at Arizona, but he's only had 2 double-digit fantasy games going all the way back to Week 1. So Week 6 and Week 10 only, with only double-digit games besides Week 1. So that's not getting the job done. Cam Newton, he looks pretty decent as the quarterback, better than Darnold did in the last few weeks here before he went down with injury. But the last few games for Robbie Anderson, Week 9 versus the Patriots, 1 catch, 20 yards. Week 10 at Arizona, 4 catches, 37 yards and a touchdown. And Week 11 versus Washington, 5 catches, 30 yards. So this season, it's been a lost season here for Anderson. He's just not catching the football. He's not really making big plays, and there's no reason to hold on to him to your fantasy team. I know he's got a good matchup in Week 12 in Miami, but right now he's an easy drop, in my opinion. Final wide receiver I would drop this week is Johnson of the Tennessee Titans. So Johnson was a hot pickup last week for fantasy owners. Added in 18% of fantasy leagues, but he pulled up lame in a throw in the end zone, and that hamstring went, and he was quickly ruled out versus the Houston Texans. So right here, we know that hamstring's a bad injury. We know it's a tricky injury, and he's going to be out probably a few weeks here as Johnson. So he finished that ball game versus Houston with 1 target, and that was the only target, and pulling up on that hamstring. So the last few games here for Johnson, Week 9 at the Rams, 1 carry for -7 yards. Week 10 versus New Orleans, a good game. That's why it was a hot pickup. 5 catches for 100 yards. And Week 11 versus Houston, the 1 target. So right here, Marcus Johnson, he's a decent wide receiver over the last few years. We saw him have flashes with Indianapolis, and then the good game here with the Titans. But right now, he's injured, and this Titan team's really banged up at the wide receiver position. Julio Jones is hurt. Marcus Johnson now. We saw A.J. Brown leave the ball game with a chest injury, and right now it's just bad news for this Titan team. But right now with this injury, I think he's going to be out multiple weeks, and there's no reason to hold on to him. So that's a few wide receivers I would drop here for Week 12 of the fantasy football season.